It was the summer of 2018, and Caitlin Friz, a 19-year-old college student from Virginia Commonwealth University, had her whole life ahead of her. She was vibrant, full of life, and loved by everyone who knew her. From the outside, her life seemed perfect. But lurking beneath the surface was a dark relationship that would soon spiral into a tragic tale of deception, violence, and murder. On June 29, 2018, Caitlin left her family home in Chesapeake, Virginia, to meet up with a friend. She had told her family she wouldn't be gone long, but hours turned into days, and there was no sign of her. When her phone went silent, panic set in. Her family reported her missing, and the police quickly launched an investigation. Caitlin's last known contact was with a young man named Stephen Coakley, a 21-year-old with a troubled and mysterious background. He and Caitlin had met online several months prior, and they had been maintaining an off-and-on relationship. Stephen was described as quiet, introverted, and increasingly strange in his behavior. To Caitlin's family and friends, he was nothing more than a distant acquaintance. But they had no idea how wrong they were. The police immediately honed in on Stephen as a person of interest. He was the last person to see Caitlin, and his alibi was shaky. He claimed they had met briefly that day, but he dropped her off shortly after, and that was the last he had seen her. At first, Stephen seemed cooperative, but something about his story didn't sit right with investigators. In the days that followed, law enforcement began combing through hours of surveillance footage from nearby businesses. Their suspicions were confirmed when they found footage showing Caitlin getting into Stephen's car on the day she disappeared. Stephen had lied, he had been with her longer than he claimed. 5 days after Caitlin went missing, a group of hikers in a remote wooded area stumbled upon something horrifying, a body, partially covered in leaves and dirt. It was Caitlin. Her face bore the marks of a violent struggle, and the autopsy revealed that she had been strangled. The discovery of Caitlin's body shattered her family and community. What had happened to this bright young woman, and why? The police zeroed in on Stephen once again. With the mounting evidence against him, Stephen was brought in for questioning. Under intense pressure, Stephen finally cracked. He confessed to the brutal killing of Caitlin. According to his statement, they had gotten into an argument in his car when Caitlin tried to break off their relationship for good. Stephen, already emotionally unstable, snapped. He strangled her in a fit of rage, and once she was dead, he panicked. He drove her body deep into the woods, hoping to cover up the crime, but his actions would soon catch up with him. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that Stephen was far from an ordinary young man. His online activity revealed a disturbing pattern. Stephen had been frequenting dark and violent online communities, chat rooms where users discussed misogyny, hate, and fantasies of violence. In these forums, he vented his anger toward women, claiming they were unworthy of life. It was in these dark corners of the internet that Stephen's hatred had festered and grown. The murder of Caitlin wasn't just a crime of passion. It was the culmination of months, perhaps years, of Stephen immersing himself in dangerous, extremist ideologies online. His participation in these toxic spaces fueled his sense of power and entitlement, ultimately driving him to commit a horrific act. The trial that followed shocked the nation. Stephen's defense team argued that he suffered from mental health issues and had been manipulated by the dark corners of the internet. But the jury saw through the excuses. The prosecution laid out a chilling case, showing how Stephen had planned to hide Caitlin's murder and had no intention of coming forward until the evidence became overwhelming. In the end, Stephen was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice was served, but for Caitlin's family, the pain of losing their daughter in such a senseless act would never fade. Caitlin's story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers lurking in the digital world. What began as an innocent online connection spiraled into a nightmare, revealing the dark side of internet communities where hate thrives unchecked. Her tragic death left a scar on her community and opened up a national conversation about the hidden dangers of online relationships and extremist groups festering in the shadows of the web. In the end, Caitlin was a victim of more than just Stephen's violent tendencies. She was a victim of a system that allows hate to grow in the dark corners of society, waiting to claim its next victim.